that a statistic that I really like is when I first moved here in 2017 in the venture capital ecosystem, so entrepreneurship, venture capital, there was only in 2017 there was $49 million in the venture capital ecosystem. Last year, I think it was $2.3 billion. So if you trace the years, that's not a linear path. That is an exponential growth. And I think it's very, very hard. And I think the world will be doing case studies on Saudi, probably already is, um, about how really the leadership, and it's not just the leadership, it's everything from the top down and the bottom up, right? You can't just force entrepreneurship, innovation, creative thinking onto people.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Jehan AlMahmoud, joining you from Riyadh, a city at the center of global innovation and investment under Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. Through my podcast, we sit with expats contributing to that transformation in tangible ways. Today, I'm joined by Joel Huffman from the United States, an entrepreneur and an investment strategist who has been living and building in Saudi Arabia for years. His work focuses on connecting global capital with local opportunity, particularly in the rapidly expanding space of AI infrastructure and data center development across the GCC. Beyond technology and investment, he has also shown a commitment to engaging with Saudi culture, including co founding initiatives that support non Arabic speakers in learning Saudi Arabic and better understanding the local Saudi culture. As Saudi Arabia strengthens its position through Vision 2030 economically, culturally, and diplomatically, Joel's experience reflects the kind of leadership required in this new phase of Saudi Arabia's global presence. We're very happy to have you with us today, and we're genuinely curious about your incredible journey from the United States to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So, do you mind just telling us a little bit more about it and how many years you've been around? What have you been up to?
Sure. I mean, such an honor to be here. Thank you so much. I first got to Saudi Arabia in 2017. So I've been here about 8 years. I'm from Texas originally. And my first Saudi friends were actually in Texas. The first time I ever had dates and Saudi coffee was in Fort Worth, Texas. And it was there that, you kind of got introduced to Saudi hospitality, and the just close relationships built there. And so moved over originally to help start a company in the sports and fitness and wellness space. And at that time, it was on a that industry was on a massive increase as well, and so a very exciting time, just seeing the population sort of embrace everything around health and fitness and wellness, and so very, very excited time. I worked in that industry for several years, and then moved on to other things as well.
Amazing. Yeah. And you've been around for almost 7 years, right? Here in Riyadh, Saudi
Yeah,
Arabia.
over
That's
eight
it.
actually.
Over eight. Wow.
Seems like a lot.
Yeah. Do you remember like the first time that Riyadh started feeling like a space that you could belong and more than just a place where you're starting, a business and fitness?
Yeah, it took a while. It took about 2 days on my second day here. I like to tell a story. I was just at a coffee shop and just ordering a coffee, and the person behind me is a young Saudi guy, and he just started talking to me. Oh, كيف حالك? I didn't know much Arabic then, so I said, "Salam alaikum. أنا من أمريكا. اسمي جول." He's, "Oh, mashallah, كيف حالك? أهلا وسهلا." Like he was very welcoming. Of course, he bought my coffee, offered to buy my coffee, and then he said, "My cousin's getting married tomorrow." He said, "I want you to be at the wedding. You have to be at the wedding." So
Whoa.
on day two, get invited to a wedding, and yeah, just an incredible time. And I think that's what I was like, oh, this place is different. This place is pretty special.
That's incredible. So
Uh,
you've already had like an exposure to Saudi culture through your work or study in Texas before you
yeah.
came to Saudi Arabia.
Yes. Yes.
And then you've actually witnessed it firsthand
Well,
here.
I thought they were just nice guys. I thought, oh, a
Uh,
couple guys that I met, very nice. I didn't realize there was a whole country of people that were the nicest, most hospitable, friendliest people. Genuinely, just friendly and nice, and so I didn't realize there's an entire country like this, and So I said, "That's it. I'm not going anywhere."
Incredible. And through the 8 years that you've been around in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, what kind of changes have you witnessed that truly stood out to you? Like, what do you remember from Riyadh 8 years ago and Riyadh today that you're experiencing it,
Um,
both socially and professionally?
yeah, yeah, I think it's easy to point to the big thing, the regulatory environment, ease of doing business here. I think it was an international place already. I think it's become even more international. Riyadh specifically, I mean, the whole country certainly. Um, Sports are in an increase. For an industry that basically had football and a couple other sports. I think it's easy to point to kind of the bigger changes like that. But I think um, it's fascinating me that it's not, it's not like taking a snapshot of time of saying Riyadh was like this and now it's like this. I think it was Aristotle that said we were all becoming, we were all in the process of becoming. And so I see Riyadh as constantly changing, constantly becoming what it's going to be. And I think what's impressed me the most is, and this is directly from the leadership, from His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, he said, we want to be modern. We want to be a tech forward country, city, certainly. Um, we want to innovate. We want to do all this, but we want to keep our culture. We want to keep our values. We want to keep our heritage. So I think that's just been the most remarkable thing, is that he said we're not trying to be like the West. We're not trying to be like America. We're not trying to be like Dubai or Qatar. We can't take um, any one place and say this is what we want to be like. We have to be the best version of Saudi, and that doesn't exist. He said, but and his leadership has really, I mean, led all this. I mean, he set the vision. He has empowered us all to pursue our dreams, and given us the opportunity. Certainly, for me personally, I don't think anywhere else in the world has the opportunity that Riyadh has, that Saudi has. And so I think that's been the most remarkable to me, is that even amidst all the economic changes, amidst all the social changes, still keeping the core identity of who Saudi is as a society, um, and what elements can we, I think it was Steve Jobs that says the best the best people steal things or borrow things, right? They take different elements and they piece it together in certain ways, and then you come up with something that doesn't exist. You come up with a completely
Mm.
new um a new version of Saudi Arabia. And it's constantly kind of being, I mean, it's almost like a startup company. It's a $7 trillion startup
Mm.
company, but it's almost like a startup where there's you have you certainly have a vision, and then you have milestones. And he's done a brilliant job of like keep KPIs throughout the entire, all across the industries, across sectors. But then as you progress, there are going to be things that come up that you need to change or adapt. And as you're constantly getting feedback, okay, we tried this, let's adjust it a little bit. We tried that, let's change a little something. This was working really well. Let's push harder on this. And so
Mm.
um yeah, I'd say yeah, remarkable journey that we're all on. And if we're talking about certain sectors, I mean, take tourism for example. uh Tourism didn't exist when we got here. There were no tourist visas. I mean, there's Hajj and Umrah and stuff, and there were some business visitors, guests, but there's no tourist visas. And so an industry that was essentially nascent, essentially didn't exist, to surpassing the Vision 2030 goals of 100 million visits 2 years ago, 5 or 6 years before the uh, the deadline, things like that. Certainly in the arts and culture, entertainment industries, where there wasn't a huge industry, and not just the performers, but even the entire ecosystems around that to support the performers, whether it's film or fashion or arts or culture or whatever it is. Um, so I think, and some of the industries, the legacy industries, I mean, whether it's real estate or energy or something like that, those have all been completely, it's still innovating. It's not saying, okay, this is what we've done for 50 years, 80 years, 100 years. We're going to keep doing that. It's saying, no, this is, everything is going through this innovative process. So it's, yeah, it's just a remarkable time to be here.
Incredible. And absolutely going back to your idea earlier about how Saudi Arabia is definitely going to that direction of modernizing and going to that like futuristic facing kind of industries, we're still looking to be like globally relevant, but also culturally grounded. And through your many accomplishments that you've accomplished in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, one of them was exactly portraying that how to stay culturally grounded through language and Saudi culture. So can you share with us more about like how did that idea start and how did you manage to, commercialize Arabic for non-Arabic speakers and also scale it to this impressive degree?
Well, it all came, I think, from and it wasn't all my idea, by any means. Remarkable co-founders, incredible team. Um, I have no background in education or technology or linguistics, and so this came from a felt need that I had. Moving to Saudi, again, such a hospitable culture. We moved in the winter time, and so we were out in the desert with friends, having keshtas, and whether it's on the side of the road or out, we go through Thumama or out in the desert, and I was just furiously taking down notes on, okay, how do I say this? How do I? Because I studied languages in the past. I'd studied Spanish and Chinese, and sorry, Mandarin, and so I wanted to learn Arabic. But a lot of the, certainly coming from the U.S., most of, if not all of the courses or things that were available were Fusha, or they were other dialects, whether it was Egyptian or Shami, like Jordanian, Levant dialect. And so, but for me, I was like, language is the gateway into culture. I think understanding a language, I think being able to speak a language, and it's not just the words, it's not just translation, it's the way, thoughts are formed. It influences so much about every understanding or realization of culture. There are some things that you just can't translate, ideas almost that you can't translate from language to language. And so it fascinated me. And so I wanted to learn Arabic. I wanted to learn the Saudi dialect of Arabic. And I know there are different accents. Saudi is a huge place with many different cultures, even within the country. And so we wanted to, our goal was to create a place that we wish we had when we first moved here, somewhere that you could have interactions with, fully immersive, with Saudi native speakers from all over the country, so you could get different perspectives, not just to learn the language, but the methodology that we use is a languacultural approach to learning language, and so the goal is to see the world through someone else's eyes. And I think that living in a different culture, being a foreigner in a different culture, um, like I want to do that. I didn't. I had some friends that when I moved here, they had lived on compounds for 10 years, 15 years, and they said, we don't speak any Arabic. We don't have any Saudi friends. We stay on a compound and go to work, and then we travel on the holidays. And they said, we're just really sad. We feel like we've missed out on living in Saudi Arabia. And so they said, don't do that. They said, they gave us a cautionary tale. And so, yeah, we wanted to be able to provide that experience because I think a lot of people moving to Saudi don't know a lot about it, and they're looking for entry points into how do I engage with society on a more than a surface level, more than just the music or the food or something like that, but really, um, and I think, living here, I think doing business here, it's only a net positive, right? There's nothing negative, everything, and it's actually, we've seen significant benefits to learning the language, to learning the culture, and so yeah, we just we wanted to be able to provide that for others as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible what you're providing for sure, especially like, to monetize on it as well, like, and to actually be able to teach the dialect specifically because as a linguist, I know there are always these like, issues about like which dialect to teach and what do you call it and all of these politics around it. So for sure, like having been able to portray that in a successful business model that works in a like general language that we use to speak in Riyadh City, that was beautifully done. And I'm very aware of what you guys do, and I've had a look at all your textbooks and everything. So it's absolutely impressive.
Well, coming from your background and experience, that's a huge compliment. So I do not take that lightly. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
And back to your point, what you talked about, expats, when they come here, they're typically a little bit more isolated. They go into these compounds and they stay in there, and they might not like mingle as much with the locals. Can you talk more about that, and what kind of advice would you give to like newcomers interested in actually thriving in Saudi Arabia, not just professionally, but also socially?
Sure. I think one is the mindset. Having, to have coming over here. I think some people come and they do just come for the job. They come for the job and they say, I want to go to work and I want to, be in a comfortable environment and things like that. And so if there's not a strong motivation behind it, I mean, there's not much that, you can try to kind of help them see things but I think some people are just kind of wired a bit differently to be more curious, a bit more open, to see a different culture, not as just see it as this is different, and kind of like not so much like, oh, this is different, but this is different. I want to kind of
I'm
explore more about
curious.
that.
I
Yeah, I'm
want to
curious.
learn
It's a
more.
curiosity,
Yeah.
exactly. But I think a lot of people moving here are like that. I think they are very curious. I think they are. Um, I think they're interested. I think Saudi globally, I would say, is mis sometimes misrepresented, sometimes underrepresented. Sometimes there's just not information. It's not about, negative international press or something. There's just not information. If you're trying to Google something, you might just find something from a blog post in 2018 and or whatever it is, but
Yeah.
or even something 2 or 3 years ago, which I mean, the pace that the country is changing just isn't really,
Well,
you know.
therefore, we're having this podcast to
Yeah,
kind of like bridge
yeah,
this
that's
gap
right.
exactly. And now when people are looking for information, they're going to find your video, Joel. Yeah.
um, yeah, so I'd say, but and then the other people have been phenomenal. They reached out on LinkedIn before they move here. They're like, "Hey, so I'm really curious. What's it like? I want to know
Oh,
the
they
real
reach out to
Saudi."
you via LinkedIn and
Yeah, or,
ask,
hop
okay,
on a call or something and say like, I'm interested in moving here. Maybe I got a job or I got a job offer. Can you just, can I get a little bit of your time to kind of, is it like this? Is it not? Um,
what kind of questions do you get?
well, it's kind of funny. So even going back home to Texas, some people would say like, "Oh, you're in Saudi Arabia," and so I'm Christian, I'm not Muslim or anything. But they'd be like, "Are you scared over there? Like, are you scared of, are you nervous about being, an American or about being a Christian or something?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "This is the safest place I've ever been in my life." I said, I have 4 kids. All 4 of my kids have been born here. I
MashaAllah.
said, I can take my wife and my kids anywhere at any time in any place in the city, and never have a moment of fear at all. I said, I don't lock my doors. I said, I come back to the US and I'm like locking the doors and hiding stuff under the seat. And anyway, not to compare or something, but there's just, it just shows the minds, and it's not their fault, right? It's not that they're ignorant or something. It's like you can't fully understand something, and that's what I love also when people come and visit. Is there's a communication theory called expectation violation theory. It's when they have a mindset of something coming in, like, oh, I'm going to go into Saudi, and
What is it? Expectation
expectation
violation
violation theory.
theory.
It's
Okay.
saying that this is actually that if you go into something, so the classic example is if someone tells you that you're going to go to a prison cell, and you see, like, you encounter a hotel room, uh, you're going to say, "Oh my goodness, this is incredible. This is like the nicest prison cell I've ever seen in my life." So if you have, it all depends on expectations. And so if people come over to Saudi and they think it's almost a closed off society or unfriendly, or well, whatever they have in their minds. Maybe it's because they don't know. Maybe because it's because people don't have an accurate view, and they come and they say, "Oh my goodness, there's 5G everywhere. I'm more connected here than I am anywhere in the world. The people are so nice. The people are so friendly." People just start saying, "We're so honored that you come to my country. Thank you so much. Have you seen this? Have you gone to Diriyah? Do you want to go to the desert? I'd love to host you in my home." And this just shocks people. And I love it. I don't get tired of that. Um, yeah. So I'd say that's, if I was going to encourage foreigners either thinking about coming or moving here or that are already here. Um, a couple of things. I think if people are on their way here, there's research that shows that whatever habits you make in your whatever habits that you do and you would build, sorry, whatever habits that you build within your first 3 months set the trajectory of basically your entire like living abroad. And so during those first 3 months are very important. Are you going to, go to your foreign Western expat or whatever it is, go to foreign friends? Or are you going to find a Saudi friend and say, actually, I need to get even just like basic things. I need to get this for my house, or I need to, how do I do this? Or kind of asking them about that. WhatsApp groups are phenomenal. So asking advice, or asking cultural things, like Saudi colleagues or friends are so open. And I do it all the time still. I'm like, hey, I did this. Like finding a trusted friend as well, someone that kind of understand. And I'm like, look, uh, like, and sometimes I have to ask in a way because Saudis are so generous and hospitable and kind. I'll say, "Hey, this is what I did." I can't ask, "What do you think about that?" Because my friends will say, "Oh, that's fine. That's okay." I say, "No, no, no. What would you do in that situation?" Well, I would have done something very different. I'm like, "Okay, just talk to me about that. Tell me about that." Um, and so I think it's, yeah, coming over with a attitude of humility and curiosity, and then just like finding ways to engage with the culture in the right when you get here. And it's never too late. I always say it's never too late to start doing these things and kind of to go to a deeper level other than just trying some kebsa or something, which is great. But I always encourage people to enjoy life here. Do things, like the deeper you go in the culture, I feel like the more people enjoy life here.
So come with a mindset of humility, curiosity, openness to new experiences and engaging with locals. Yeah, absolutely. And so, what have you noticed in your experience and mainly professionally about working with people that come from a completely different background? What kind of like maybe tension that arises, and how have you successfully worked around it?
It's a great question, and it's real. And I could talk socially. I think within a business context, again, Saudi is such an international place that we have worked with international teams where sometimes, there might be large entities that have a lot of portfolio companies that bring in, maybe it's international senior management, but then the whole, directors and VPs and everything are Saudi. And so even within that context, and English might be the lingua franca, it might be the shared language, but culturally, we've done workshops with companies where, just recently an example where it was a 30-40 year corporate background from the US CEO, and uh and he had, in his kind of all hands meetings, 20 or so people in there, kind of the heads of the different departments and everything. And he liked to kind of call out individual people and kind of joke around with them, but it could be like, oh, well, yeah, Abdullah wouldn't know that because he's always late. Ha ha ha, like things like that. And so we realized in discussing this and talking about the cultural differences that it was two totally different worlds. So speaking English, let's say, but coming from two totally different worlds. The U.S. corporate world, where you kind of call people out, it's an individualistic culture, and so it's not a collectivistic. Saudi's a collectivistic culture, U.S. individualistic culture, and so the manager would see that as like, oh, I'm building a relationship with you, I'm kind of like joking around with you, it means that I like you. Whereas the Saudi colleague would see that as like, I've been publicly shamed. It's like a shame to get called out,
Yeah.
or something
It's
like
face
that.
threatening. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's face threatening, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And so that's just a small example, but it really, there's a lot of things that you could take from that sort of the mix of the international environment. Saudi is a relational culture, meaning that, um, whether it's managers or subordinates or whoever it is, or colleagues, build trust through relationships. And so, I mean, there's a saying in Saudi, small talk isn't small. So when you're coming in and you say, "Assalamu alaikum, kaif halik?" How was your weekend? What did you do? Did you travel? How's your family? How are your kids? That small talk is not small at all, because that's relationship building. Whereas, uh, the US and some, Western cultures are more task oriented, where the manager or whoever it is might, you would build trust with somebody through getting your work done. So if you came in the office, you didn't talk with anybody, and you just, got your work done and it was good quality, that's how you would build trust in a work setting. Whereas in here, it's kind of a mix. I don't, again, it's not one way or the other. I think in working with these companies that are building high performance international teams, you have to develop a third culture. You have to develop, it's going to be a mix of, because it's not just two countries either. It's the East, it's the West, it's Europe and Africa and Asia and, US, Canada. So it's, you might have 15 different countries all working together on the same project. And so um, I would say cultural intelligence is not a luxury. It's not just a nice thing to have that HR makes you do to kind of put a check in the box. I'd say it's probably the biggest differentiator that we've seen between teams that are high performing. They have good communication. They build trust within teams. And ultimately that leads to higher productivity. It leads to less tension, of course, less cultural stress, and it leads to at the end of the day, it's better results, faster results, more cohesive teams, and so. I think that's what we've seen as um, the biggest change, because everybody's working so hard,
Right.
but it's hard when the stress is interpersonal stress, because the job is going to give us enough stress already. There's big targets that we need to achieve in tight timelines, and so the last thing we want is to have that intercultural stress where it's not the project that's difficult; it's our colleagues as well.
Right, absolutely. And it's definitely one of those things that sometimes we take for granted. Like, oh, of course, like we're all humans. We all speak English, the same language, fluently, regardless of what's our first language. So it is probably going to be easy. However, this is not the case. And a lot of times, and I'm not sure if you can think of an example, a specific example from your own life where you had faced like some type of intercultural tension or moment of misalignment, and that through dialogue or through something that you have done, you have turned it around and you have resolved it successfully.
Oh, all the time. I mean, so and just being part of the management of a company and having you know 30 to 50 Saudi staff all the time. And so building a company culture, we've tried to be very intentional about building a company culture around communication and conversation. And it's not always the fastest. It's not always the most efficient. You want to get the work done, but not at the expense of people. So putting people first, and there's tons of studies that Harvard has done. I mean, this is a decades old principle, but building a team, building trust within the team first, and delivering on a good team, and then the team will then work better, and then deliver better results to the
Mm.
clients, to the customers. And so for us, that um, it's a lot around, how can I say it? So there's in giving in giving negative feedback and giving correction and giving um there's a saying in the US that you give like a compliment sandwich. You're like, hey, you're doing a great job, you can work on these couple things, but you're doing a really fantastic job. It's like a good thing, and then give
Mhm.
the compliment, and then
So
say something else.
compliment, critique, compliment. So
Yes.
like sandwich it.
Yes, it doesn't always
Okay,
work here though.
it doesn't work here.
Because
What have you noticed? Yeah.
even with the direct, US is more on the side of direct negative feedback, where you would just kind of say, hey, these are the expectations, this is your job, this is where you're falling short, here's how we can help, and here's how we believe that you're here. Obviously, you've you've demonstrated the ability to do the job. It's our fault as management if we're not, kind of empowering you or giving you the skills or the tools to be able to do the job. So here's a plan to, kind of a growth path, going forwards. But I realize here the communication can be very different, because um, Saudi is a very like indirect communication, and so sometimes we'll need to, when we're having a conversation with somebody, it's not a 10-minute performance review or something. You actually talk about a lot more. Hear about their life, hear about what's going on, hear about if there are other factors involved that we might not know about at all. And so um I think taking the time to do that, or even telling stories, that's another way of not saying like this is what you need to do better, but kind of making it indirect, not as it doesn't feel as personal, I think. And I'm still learning this, by the way. Like I still fail at this constantly, trying to understand how to better communicate within the work context and give feedback, because at the end of the day, it's the goal is improvement. But it's a holistic improvement. It's not can you do the job better, but it's like we want all of us to operate better. Sometimes it could be something that's my fault that I need to do better, and so I don't think that comes without really taking the time to try to um again, if it's ideally, um so if they speak Arabic and I speak English, or whatever it is, there's already going to be that barrier. But it's again creating that kind of third communication space where it's not just the language that you use, but the sort of the techniques around direct or indirect communication that we've seen has actually led to a lot stronger trust, even amidst some conflict, or some minor conflict or whatever. But I think that's been valuable as well.
Absolutely. And surprisingly, sometimes just being aware of those differences, like being aware of direct, indirect, high context, low context cultures, collectivistic individuals, just like knowing that these are the differences, and then acting not necessarily accordingly, but acting in a way that like you will get like your work done through it, and just like with this mindset that okay, we're different, and there are certain differences that we need, can actually be super helpful. Like can change things up, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and it also helps to just say, sometimes I'll say, "Look, I don't know how to say this. I'm gonna go American for a second. Like I'm gonna be an American real
So
fast."
frame it that way,
Yeah,
like
even just say that, and I think it's not, the expectation isn't that I all of a sudden overnight become Saudi. I can never communicate like, I mean, I can try as hard as I can, and the expectation isn't that my Saudi friends, colleagues, all of a sudden overnight, even though so many of them are very internationally well aware of everything, whether it's geopolitically or economically or socially or culturally. Um, but the expectation also isn't that I can just talk to them like as someone else. And so again, it's sort of finding that shared language and finding that
mhm,
shared understanding. And sometimes I do have to say, okay, I'm just going to be very American. I'm going to ask you this, or hey, I'm going to do this. Like, and then afterwards, I'll say, okay, how could I have done that better, or how what would you have done in this situation? So I think it's a constant learning process, and it's fascinating. It's thrilling.
absolutely, yeah. And as a Saudi Arabian woman born and raised in Riyadh who has spent 8 years in Washington, D.C., doing grad school at Georgetown and all of that, I have started adapting some of those like cultural like habits like in day-to-day work environments. One of them is that the hierarchy kind of markers are less in the US. So I would be speaking to my professor using first names, for example. We will never do that here with our professors in school at all. Or even at work environments, I would be speaking to the CEO of the company that I'm working for, just like a friend having coffee and just, but
Sure.
here it's something that you need to be aware of it, and it's totally different. And also the directness and indirectness aspect, what I've noticed here is that I had to unlearn what I've learned in the US, which is about like being direct about things. And if someone gives me like feedback as a suggestion, I take it as a suggestion, not as a directive. However, what they meant, because they are at this higher like level of hierarchy, they actually meant it as a directive, bottom line. And I had to learn it the really hard way, like when I first came back from the US, and having to kind of adapt to this kind of culture. So truly, those differences are like, they really do make a difference. And like if you're aware of them, and if you kind of like, as and I like what you said about framing it, if you have to like be direct, it's like okay, just like I'm being the American person here, and I have to do this and be straightforward with you guys and
You almost have to be like a chameleon. I always
chameleon.
respect Saudis are so contextually aware.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I've heard something like 70 or 80% of communication is nonverbal. So knowing who's in the room, what the context is, out socially or wherever it is, knowing who's around, and I feel like again, just going back to Americans, sometimes we can be so narrow-minded into like this is our world and this is all we see. But I'm so fascinated by exactly what you said, being contextually aware of uh, who's here, what are they thinking, what is their motivation, what is their mindset. What's probably why Saudis are such phenomenal negotiators and business people, is because they're constantly um, they're constantly reading the room. They're reading the unspoken sort of dynamics, and it's very intimidating if you don't know how to how to do it. Not intimidating like like they're intimidating, but it's such a high level of expertise that I don't know, maybe people are born with it, or it's just part of the culture, is how people grow up. But I can
Have
see
you
how.
noticed it more like than like the youth in the US, for example, or like
Oh,
that Saudis are really aware of things or
oh, absolutely. No,
oh,
absolutely.
interesting.
No, I think
Mhm.
it's completely contextual. I think, and just being able to have a mindset, and maybe it's in the individualistic side, like, this is kind of what I'm doing, this is what I'm thinking, this is my goal, this is my path. Um, coming from the US, or maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to think
Yeah.
about it more, but sort of maybe some cultural values there. Um,
Nigel, I'm really interested in your own pathway, like the career pathway and the academic pathway that you've taken. This is something that I wanted to ask you for a while, so let's take the chance to ask you.
sure.
You've truly taken a non-linear kind of path into what you're doing, right? Like you got into like back in Texas, you were in like oil and like right, and then you got Saudi Arabian sports, and then you got into like culture and Saudi Arabic, and now you're doing amazing things with AI and all of that. I find that in Saudi Arabia, this kind of non-linear pathway of like choosing your own like career path and being having this agency and autonomy in choosing what you want to do, it's less so here. Like I've noticed from my experience and from just like overall as a collective society is that our parents dictate a lot of things. And also the labor market would say like, okay, no, if you don't have a background in X discipline, then you're not justified to actually contribute to it as a person in here. But living in the US, I've noticed this a lot, like similar pathways that you've taken in your life, like people with a background in like, I don't know, like early childhood education, they get out of nowhere and get into UX design, and then out of nowhere get into radiology technician.
Yeah.
And so they change things up and they have this autonomy. But like can I ask you how did you make it work for yourself, and any advice of, because I know a lot of Saudi younger people, they want to take this pathway,
Mhm.
but still there are sometimes hurdles and like
Well, I'd say Saudi is a dangerous place, for someone with ADHD. So I think there are way too many opportunities, and it's way too much fun here. And just the whole mindset is, it's a mindset. I try to describe it as a mindset of abundance. It's, collaborative, it's dynamic, it's fast paced, it's, so many opportunities. It seems like so many people have ideas, they see gaps, and even if they have a full-time job somewhere, they'll have a stable full-time job somewhere, but they'll have three or four, maybe it's something even like oh, they own three coffee shops, or they own a barber shop, or they own, or they're, an investor in something else, or they have an idea that two or three friends came together and said, we saw a gap in the market, so we want to, pursue this heavily. It is something that I've heard, and I think, again, it just speaks to the extraordinary leadership of the country. That a statistic that I really like is, when I first moved here in 2017, in the venture capital ecosystem, so entrepreneurship, venture capital, there was only, in 2017 there was $49 million in the venture capital ecosystem. Last year, I think it was $2.3 billion. So if you trace the years, that's not a linear path. That is an exponential growth. And I think it's very, very hard. And I think the world will be doing case studies on Saudi, it probably already is, um, about how really the leadership, and it's not just the leadership, it's everything from the top down and the bottom up, right? You can't just force entrepreneurship, innovation, creative thinking onto people, because, like you said, it could be. And some of the founders that I've talked with, they said, my parents thought I was crazy. I went and got this great education, whether it's US or in Saudi, whatever it is. I got this great education. I was supposed to come back and work for the government, or work
Mhm.
for a big, big consulting firm, or, whatever it is. And they said, "What do you mean you're gonna have a startup company and you're gonna go beg people for
exactly.
money, or you're gonna?" You're like, "No, no, it's raising money, it's raising capital." And so I think there is that. It's new. I think it's new. It takes, I've heard, anywhere from, 12 to 15 years in a country to, or in a city. They can look at this in cities where some people try to based on like Silicon Valley or something, but that was really unique circumstances that created that at the time. But you can look at, for example, Miami is a place, Austin is a place, Boston, Boulder. There's some places in the U.S. that really have this, I almost call it an innovative ecosystem, and it's everything from universities, not just to your point, and Al Faisal University is doing this. It's not just okay if you're a computer scientist that all you're going to do is study computer science. If that's your degree, then there's some they're doing sort of collaborative classes.
Like interdisciplinary degrees.
Interdisciplinary,
Okay.
exactly. And they'll
Mhm.
say, we're going to take a computer science, we're going to take someone from the business
Yeah.
school.
A lot
And
of universities in the higher education system in Saudi Arabia are, you're absolutely right, are starting to do that, which is incredible. And I believe that it's influenced by this kind of like individualistic, kind of like more autonomous kind of mindset that,
yeah,
yeah, that
absolutely.
people,
And I
yeah,
think
from the
it's
US.
and anybody that I would always suggest anybody that's looking to start a company, don't do it alone. Find
Mm,
someone, because whatever happens, whatever you're really good at, um, there's going to be something in business that you have no experience. You're not going to, whether it's if you come from a strong tech background, sometimes it could be sales or marketing, or if you come from a strong, finance background, maybe it could be, whatever maybe it's technology, maybe it's operations or something like that. So, huge respect to how really it's the entire ecosystem. It's everything from putting that mindset in, helping. um I think it's the founders who took that risk early on. um I saw a study, something that everybody from Kareem, how many of them, and that was one of the, first big exits of the country, and how many of them went on to become founders themselves. And I think it's something like their companies are worth $16 billion today. So, 50 different, 100 different founders all went on to start. So I think you also have to see, I mean, I love Her Royal Highness Princess Rima says you have to, I think she says you have to see it to believe it or something. You have to see it to be it or something.
mhm.
And so I think it's true. I think seeing other people that have done it can kind of embolden you and give you the courage to do something, or even just dream something's possible. But then there's everything. There's the education piece of it. There's the everything from the investor side, the angel investors coming alongside and mentoring founders as well. It's the accelerators, the incubator programs, which the government has done so well at just giving people the opportunity. If you have an idea, come join this program, and you can see how to turn an idea into validating an opportunity, and then building a proof of concept, and then an MVP, and then raising some seed capital, and then going all the way through the growth stages as well. Because it wasn't just first time founders. You had a lot of investors. They were first time fund managers, first time venture capitalists, first time in private equity, whatever it is. And look at Dr. Nabil Koshak at SVC, and everything that he has done to and him and his team, and really again the leadership of the country has really um, done so much to look at all the different pieces of an innovative ecosystem. And it's not just one industry; it's across industries. And really be able to see where the gaps are and how to fill the gap, and then how to also, I think we're in a time now where we're the kind of pulling off the training wheels, where the private sector kind of got a push start from, maybe it was capital, maybe it was mentorship or something like that. But now, as the private sector is rolling and gaining pace, it's not increasing like this; it's making leapfrog, uh, you know, advances in the entire industry, in the entire ecosystem.
And you've mentioned something about like if you're about to start a business, don't do it alone. Do it with someone and with a business partner. What kind of advice would you give people, given that you have actually launched successful initiatives when it comes to choosing a business partner? And would you recommend actually choosing like a local person and internationals? And how will that actually benefit the business if you have two partners or three partners from different backgrounds culturally?
100%. No, I think, and we everybody from multinational companies coming over, huge companies coming over and entering the Saudi market. We say the best thing you can do is to find a local partner, because you might have international expertise in a certain field. um, don't just think that you can copy and paste whatever business model you did, even in other parts of the globe, even in Dubai. Some people say, oh, we're successful in Dubai. Yeah, Habibi, like this is this is Saudi. Welcome to Saudi. And don't just think that you can come over and copy and paste something. I'd say, if nothing else, then whether it's a consultant or an advisor or something, I think ideally you find a joint venture partner, or whatever it is. It can look at like a lot of different structures, but yes, you find a local partner, that can share local expertise, because we've seen companies come over and do this successfully, and they enter the market and be very, very, very successful, and they um, nothing but a huge benefit. We've seen other companies that come in and don't do this, and they spend years. Some people think, I'm kind of interested in Saudi. I'm going to come over and visit once or twice a year, try to get a project there, and then I'm going to move my company over here. We tell them, look, the country is redeveloping itself every 3 months, every 6 months. It's a new place, and so don't think that you can come get some business cards and send some emails. Like it's just moving at too fast of a pace. And I tell everybody, I say Saudi is thinking long term. They're thinking close partnerships. So the best thing you can possibly do is just pack your bags and move here. I say it's yes, you're taking a risk, but um, it's I think every individual has to build the conviction that it's worth the risk.
Incredible. And when you hear the phrase, which is in the theme of this podcast, cultural diplomacy, how do you think that your work contributes to the concept of cultural diplomacy, even if your title does not necessarily carry it explicitly?
Cultural diplomacy, I think, can look a lot of different ways. I think anytime, I mean, like when you were in the U.S. or anytime you encounter an opportunity to share culture, and not culture just on a surface level. I mean, the way we think of culture is it's like kind of like an iceberg. The top 10% is the dress, the music, maybe the food, maybe the very surface
Your
level things that you
language,
see.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly, the
It's
things
all
that
the
you
tip of the
see.
iceberg. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. But then the layer beneath that is the values. So what are the values that drive the culture? So the hospitality in Saudi Arabia drives the behaviors that you'll see of people being so friendly, or things like that. And then beyond the values, what are the beliefs that drive the values that drive the behavior? And so um, I think having a better understanding of that, it is multi-layered, that culture is not just a surface level difference, or like you're saying, language, or a different
Music or
yeah,
yeah.
music, yeah, something that's just a difference. I think looking at the different layers of culture, and again, being curious. I think being curious, I think asking questions, and doing research as well.
And how do you think your work specifically like contributes to cultural diplomacy? Because it seems like it does. Just want to hear it from you.
Yeah, we see it every day, and sometimes it's in the individual level, where they'll say, "This has been a total paradigm shift. I thought this way," and trying to think of an example, but something where uh, I thought, oh, so sometimes when offering something, um, or when when yeah, when maybe when a foreigner offers their Saudi colleague something, Saudi colleague will politely decline. And then the foreigner will say, "Well, I don't think they like me. They never say yes." So no, sometimes it's cultural to decline on the first offer. And then, because if you take it the first time, it's seen as like being greedy.
Mhm.
Hey, would you like this? Oh yeah, thank you so much. Okay, it's again, it's not better or worse or anything. It's just different. Whereas, and sometimes the light pops on and they say, "Oh my goodness, that makes so much sense to offer the first time." And then and if they don't take it, be like, "No, no, really, I insist." It's almost like you're being aggressively generous. Be like, "No, I insist, take it." And I say, "Okay, thank you so much." And so that's on the individual level. On a bigger level, we see this on multinational, again, business is about relationship. Government, geopolitical relations are their relationships. At the end of the day, it's people talking with people. And so we see this, yes, from our work on the individual level. We see this from our work on the multinational sort of corporate advisory front. We see this on sort of geopolitical levels, and helping both sides understand and come to a mutually beneficial outcome. I think, and that doesn't happen without. And it just goes back to cultural diplomacy isn't a it's not just exporting Saudi coffee to coffee shops in the, something like that, where you're exporting your culture or something like that. It's really, um, I think, being secure and confident in, two parties coming together, being secure, being confident in their own background, in their own, and they both have agendas. We all have agendas. We all need to get stuff done, but then taking the time to understand the other person enough to phrase things, to present things in ways that uh, I think they're both understood. I think so that they don't miss each other, because sometimes a deal can fall apart. We've seen, deals fall apart because just misunderstandings or something. Not completely fall apart, but they can hit a speed bump
Mm.
because of some misunderstandings or something.
Do
And
you have
so,
an example of that when a deal have fall apart?
um, I feel I use the US a lot just because some of our work is in there, but UK as well. Saudi's not an email culture a lot of times, and so sometimes companies. I mean, this is just a small example, but sometimes companies will say, "Well, I emailed them 4 times." Uh, and I didn't hear a response back or something. And this happened actually just recently. Um, and I said, well, let's just go to their office. Can we do that? Like, are you sure we can do that? Well, yeah, let's go to their office. We went to their office. And they're very kind. They're like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Sorry, I've been so busy. They sat down, we talked, and it was totally fine. It wasn't, that the person on the international person was saying, maybe they don't like me. They were reading into the lack of communication. Maybe the deal went cold, or maybe they're not interested, or maybe I did something to offend them. Um, and so I said, no, let's send them a WhatsApp message. Say like, hey, how are you? Are you free next week? Um,
You
okay,
sent a
sure. Let's sit
WhatsApp
down.
message.
Hey, send a WhatsApp
Okay.
message. Yeah, and that's what. So I mean, something that is kind of useful is setting the right expectations for doing business in Saudi, and some people that are coming to the market, are interested in the market, again, international companies, um, they would like to plan their trip out 2 months in advance, 3 months in advance, because I get it, it's an international trip, it's a lot, there's jet lag. Plan it 2 months in advance, and then send out emails to the different target, the business potential partners or potential clients or something like that, and they want to come here for 2 or 3 days. um, and they want, 5 meetings, an hour-long meeting, and then go to the next place, an hour-long meeting. They want to pack in as much time as possible, or as many meetings as possible, and they want to leave and they want to have a contract signed or something like that. I'm like,
And it doesn't work that way.
no, of course
Yeah.
not. It doesn't work that way. I said, look, if you're going to come to Saudi, just know that this is also a place. When I first moved here, I used to have a daily planner where I would segment my days into 30-minute blocks. I'd be like, eat for 30 minutes. I know you're shaking your head. You're like, that sounds very extreme, but that's just how, because if I wanted a meeting with someone, sometimes they would be like, okay, well, next Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. Okay, I'll mark it in my calendar or something. Here, if I look at next week, it's almost completely empty. But if I look at last week, it's almost completely full. And it's just a
Mm.
dynamic. It's a fluid culture, but I also love it because it means that I can't tell you how many meetings, and even with it, I can use the example international companies coming here. I'll say, look, we got 3 meetings over 3 days. I said, don't come for 3 days. I said, come for a week, right? Come on the weekend because it's important. Maybe you're gonna want to go, like, get to know the culture. Don't just think you're gonna come here and offer your services or whatever, or whether you're investing or whether you're um, looking at, raising capital, whatever it is, raising capital or doing business or something. I said, don't, it's not transactional. The first time, don't even plan on doing any business. Plan on having coffee, plan on going to Diriyah, plan on going to Boulevard World, whatever it is, plan on just, I said, if you're going to work here, you need to find things that you really enjoy about here. Cause it's
Mm.
long term. Again, this isn't a fly by night type place. I said, they're looking for 10, 20 years or something like that. So, um, and so I say, okay, we'll plan a couple meetings, and then the rest of the days will get filled. I said, you just have to trust me on this. And they said, okay, fine. So they come. They're very nervous because what if we come and don't meet anybody? And yeah, it's not 100% or whatever, but a lot of times it's like, okay, we went to this meeting and they said, oh, that the Saudi colleague will say, oh, that's really interesting. You should talk with this person. I say, like, okay, well, can you introduce us? Okay, we'll introduce them to them, and they say, are you free for coffee tomorrow? And this person's, they're CEO of a $1 billion company in Saudi, and he's making time the next day for coffee at 4 p.m. And I'm like, that doesn't happen anywhere in the world. It's just it's a different way of doing business. And me personally, I love it. It's relationally driven. I said you could email that person 100 times a day and not get an inch, but the fact that you've come over here, you've taken the time, you've built relationships, you've built trust, um, and then let business come after that or with that.
And it takes a person who's truly adaptable and have this agility to kind of like, go with the flow with this kind of style of communication. And what you said about also like the importance of like networking for business. I think that's super important because like relationships and building trust and credibility is super important here. Nobody's going to do business with you unless they know you and they know that you're trustworthy, right? Like loyalty is really important for us as Saudis, right? So I'm curious to know from your perspective, having been here for 8 years, how have you succeeded in doing that? And what kind of advice would you give to other expats that have been here just for a little bit to kind of build this network that would probably help them thrive in their business and professionally?
I mean, you said it perfectly. I think it's adaptability. I think it's loyalty, and reputation as well. When I have a question about, and it's very different. It's very different from how my brain, I would say naturally or nature and nurture, whatever it is, how I would potentially do business in the US. When I have a question about whether it's business or society or culture or something like that, the first place that I would go in the US is I would like search for it, Google it or ChatGPT or whatever it is. I would try to search for what it is. Um, After being here for so long, I mean not a long time, it's not too long, but after being here, and I think yes, building a network of people that I trust. The first thing I think when I encounter a sort of problem or a tension or something like that is who can I talk to about this? Who can I ask about this? It's not let me research this, let me study this, let me it's because I don't know if it's a different culture that values self-sufficiency, almost like I can do it on my own. I'll just Google it or I'll just look it up or I will learn the what. It's like, no, I want to have people that I trust and that trust me that they can ask me as well. Hey, I had a question about this, or do you know anybody who is doing this, or do you know anybody has this skill set or something like that? Um, and so I think um, that's crucial here is not just saying I need to figure out the what, but who can I talk with? Who can I who can I ask about this? And a lot of times you wouldn't know that or understand that without investing the time in doing things that might not seem to have, a direct ROI on your, it might be because some of the coolest things that have happened to me have come from relationships that I didn't anticipate being in a business context or, something like that. It was,
So true.
we were in an
Yes.
istiraha or something
Hmm.
and it was 3 a.m. and we were smoking shisha or, whatever it is.
Hmm.
Um, we were friends, it was friends. I'd known someone for 2 years. This happened last week, actually, true story. I had known someone for 2 years. I had no idea what they did. I didn't know what their job was. I didn't know anything like that. I knew maybe they were in this industry or something like that. Something came along, or we had a mutual friend or something like that, and I saw him regularly. Every month or two, we're at social gatherings or something, and we would just relax. We would hang out. We would, watch football or something like that. And I've known him for 2 years. No idea what he did. Turns out that there's a pretty big project that is happening that's going on. Between sort of a cross border project. Um, and he said, "Hey, do you want to talk about this?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. Let's have a coffee or something." And I found out what he did. I was like, this is what you do? This is this is your work? You're the person. You're one of the probably like 4 people in the country that that are, the most advantageous that we would speak with. And it's just, just a funny story to say that the relationship is there. It's not always just the person that you think are, within the sphere of
Hmm.
your, industry or something like that. Sometimes it can come from something completely different because like you said it's a very tight knit culture, it's a very trusted culture, and so it also helps. It's like a chain of trust, someone that knows someone that knows
It helps to
someone.
have history, right? Like, yeah, depth of kind of.
Absolutely.
No, totally. What you said about like the culture of finding the what in the US, like I can search anything and I'll find a situation on Reddit 7 years ago that's exactly the same as I'm going through in my job in DC and very, very similar, like even details. But things here you have to, as you said, to know people, to ask,
Mm.
to it forces you to be even more social and network with people and talk to other people that have been through that. And it's definitely like this is impacting even the way that we conduct
Yeah.
meetings here, right? We usually have coffee a little bit, talk personal, ask about the kids and whatever, and then we get into the meetings. So definitely it's just fascinating to see these differences, and how they definitely complement and empower one another, definitely. And
And
uh, yeah,
sometimes it can be completely opposite. I mean, talking about trust and loyalty and everything. In the US, the a lot of times I don't say the advice is don't go into business with family or close friends because if something goes wrong in business, you're gonna have a rift in the relationship. And I found here it's the exact opposite. Like you want to do, have close, you want to be able to trust that person because the relationship is above anything. Even if something goes bad, you're still going to have the relationship, and we'll let things fall. And I don't know if this is 100% across the board or whatever, but I found the exact opposite, that actually building that trust, building those relationships over the long term can lead to great opportunities as well.
and Joel, you've been living here for a while. I think 8 years is a long time, by the way, by my own definition. So I'll give you that. And you also have been living here with your family as well. So can you share with us just briefly about like how has been family life for you in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, when it comes to the kids, the schools, and all of that?
Yeah, no, it's a very family friendly place. I mean, we came and there were two of us. It's my wife and I. She was 7 months pregnant, and so we we hit the ground running. New company, brand new startup company, new country, new baby. So haven't slept much in 8 years, but but it's
With all
been
the qahwa that you've
oh
been
yeah,
drinking
thank
too.
God for coffee. That's right. And no, it was incredible. I mean, like I said, we have 4 kids under 7 years old. They've all been born here. I think that was really special as well. We had just had something personal. It wasn't me specifically, but for my family. That right when we moved here, we'd only been here 2 or 3 months. And again, we had some friends from the U.S., and so we kind of touched base with them, and I made some new friends as well through mutual contacts, or just kind of sometimes it was just people we saw in the park that approached us that we are still friends to this day. And we had just had our daughter, our oldest daughter, and my wife's Saudi friends, the women, like through her, I don't know what the name of it is, but it's like a party for the baby, like in the hospital, and then afterwards as well, they brought chocolate, they brought everything, they like did her makeup, like so.
Oh,
It was something that was just really, I think, special that that we'll always remember. But even for I think it's amazing place for family. It's a very friendly place. Um, we've been in places where they would just take our children, in restaurants or something like that. They'll take our children in the back and they'll come out with a plate of sweets and strawberries or chocolate, whatever it is. And it's kind of just seeing people embrace our kids as our own. It's very, I mean, there's a saying, you love, as a parent, you love the people that love your kids.
oh,
Because it's not always easy, but so we
that's so
we
sweet.
love living here.
And let's say that a friend of yours landed in Riyadh tomorrow and they only had like 6 hours to explore Riyadh and to truly get the essence of Riyadh. Where would you take them and why?
I'd tell them to cancel your flight. For one, I would tell them to
Cancel your flight back.
cancel your flight back. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry, I tell them to cancel your flight back. For
Okay.
one, stay here for 3 days. Um, I mean, I love the places. I mean, I love Masmak. I love Souk Gazelle. I love seeing the
So
traditional, the
Gazelle.
heritage Souk Gazelle. Yeah. I love Daraya because you see Tawik is there, Tarif. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there. And you see the palace. I think it's just an incredible blend of modern and the heritage, and how that comes together in just, I mean, a dramatic and exceptional and accessible way. Also telling the story, telling the history and heritage. They've done a phenomenal job at that. Um, Even just, I mean, I know it's not, as a like even going to the malls here, I think are pretty remarkable. I mean, that would be lower on my list. I probably wouldn't do that. Or even, I think again, Boulevard World is incredible. I think City of Riyadh Boulevard is incredible. But yeah, to me, those are my favorite places where you see the combination of modernity and heritage and history. I'd probably take them to CAF, Kingdom Financial District, so they could just look and see what's been built in 6 years, 7 years. Just an entire massive business district to see, and even just driving around, getting stuck in traffic for a while. I think you can see because you see. I think a friend told me when they come here, he's in real estate. He said I can always tell the pace and the development of the company by the country by counting the cranes as when I see it, because cranes are pretty indicative of, okay, there's some massive developments going on here,
We have a lot of cranes
and it's
here.
all at the same time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like in different parts of the city.
Interesting. Yeah.
Um, and then if we were gonna relax, I'd probably take them to like a cafe or something, or
Mm.
like or take them to like a istiraha or something. I think those are a bit more kind of private or something. Kind of
Amazing. That's gonna need more than 6 hours, I believe, but, like, we already
the
extended
istiraha is
his
alone is 6
flight
hours. Yeah.
for 3 days.
Oh yeah, 6 flights is what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
No, cancel your flight.
Before we wrap this up, is there anything you would like to add or say that I haven't asked about, or any
I mean,
last.
you're a phenomenal conversationalist. So no, I
Thank you.
appreciate you asking the
Coming
questions.
from you, this means a lot, Joel.
I
Thank
think
you.
we covered a lot of ground. Um, I would just say you have to see it for yourself. There's nothing that, and it might be cliche. It might be, it might be, you have to. There's no way that you can possibly. I mean, podcasts are great. Don't get me like podcasts are phenomenal. Do your research, do your homework, do everything like that. But uh, there's no way you can
But
possibly
what
get
is
a
phenomenal? The po
like I think if someone's for people who are interested in coming
Yeah.
here, or like I would just say you know seeing things online is phenomenal.
Mhm.
It's great. Obviously the marketing here is great.
I
The
agree.
the brand identities here are awesome. Um, but I'd say there's nothing like actually coming here. Um, and I usually say if you're going to come for an event, some people come for F1 or a conference or something like that. Like add a couple of days to your time here. Add a couple of days to really get to know the people, get to know the culture. Um, it's I mean, I think I've seen a couple scholars or researchers, economists say that this is the most change that's happened in one place over such a short period of time in the history of the world. And you don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss out on seeing something so extraordinary.
Beautifully said. Joel Huffman, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Doctora. Thank you for the
Thank you.
time.